How's it going, guys? I hope you're all doing well out there today, wherever you are in the world. And in this video, we're going to take a look at this rather handsome chap. This is my new Charvel Guthrie Govan MJ. So this is the made in Japan version of the Guthrie SIG, attempting to bring that model in at a slightly more affordable price point. And I believe there's been some tweaks between the original model and this one. At the moment, this is a bit of a hard guitar to come by. It's out of stock everywhere. I think they released some into the wild, and then I would imagine there's been some sort of supply chain issues which is holding things up. And I think this is out of stock everywhere until sometime next year. So I actually took a punt on this one and bought it on eBay. I would normally not spend this kind of money on a guitar unseen, but it was the only way to get hold of one, and I've been very interested in it for a long while. Now, on the whole, signature models do tend to divide opinion a little bit from what I've seen online, and I do understand the argument that a lot of times an artist will endorse a core product, slap their name on it and charge more money. However, I think in certain cases, this one especially, there's been a lot of thought put into the design behind it by a musician who is on the road and touring all the time. And this is what kind of drew me to it. My guitar at the moment, my main sort of S-type guitar, is a Suhr Classic Pro. And while it's a very, very lovely guitar, and I'm not talking any smack about it, it just seemed to need more maintenance than I'd like to throw at it while I was touring. And some of the features here on this guitar really lends itself to, I think, what I was looking for. Namely, this very interesting bridge here. So it's very similar to the original non-locking Floyd Rose. So the strings, cut the ball ends off, put them in, they lock down at the bridge end. There's no locking nut on top. However, since playing this guitar, I totally understand the reasoning behind that. It's the tuning stability is out of this world. There's no movement at the bridge. And then with locking tuners at the top, provided the nuts cut right, the tuning stability is off the chain compared to some of my other guitars where, like I said, there's been slipping at the bridge. So I'm really happy with that. Moreover, there's actually graphite rods in the neck of this guitar to stop it shifting around. And again, my Suhr, fantastic guitar, but I did find taking it to festivals and things, the temperature changes and the humidity changes would make the neck shift around a little bit. So I was looking for something that was sort of bomb-proof. And to be honest, hearing Guthrie talk about this guitar and his thoughts behind the design really sold me on at least wanting to check one out. I play absolutely nothing like Guthrie, and I don't really shoot for his kind of tones necessarily, but it was more the design features of this guitar that really drew me in. And I think regardless of if this would have had Guthrie's name on it or someone else's name, or it was a core model, I definitely still would have had exactly the same interest in it. I don't want to go too deep into specs because we all have Google. We can find it all out and you don't have to listen to me reeling it off. But just briefly, it's a basswood body with an ash top, which is very thin, the ash top, so I assume it's more for aesthetic purposes. Roasted maple neck and board. Goto locking tuners. You've got some pretty huge frets on it, but I find them quite comfortable and very easy to play. Stainless steel, the frets. Lumen lace side dots. You've got this Charvel designed bridge, which is very reminiscent of the non-locking Floyd. The pickups are unique to this guitar as well. You've got a volume and a tone control. There's this mini toggle here, which engages a single coil simulation on the humbuckers. More about that in a bit. And then the 5-way is slightly unique. It's a bridge humbucker there. Then in this position, you've got the bridge split and the middle. In the middle, you've got the outer coils of the two humbuckers for sort of a telly thing. If you remember on my Suhr, if you subscribe to the channel, I did a similar thing. Then you've got the middle and bridge split, and then you've got the neck humbucker. A quick word on the neck profile while we're here. If you've ever played the Charvel DK22 or 24 as a reference, this neck is slightly rounder and feels like it's got a little bit more meat on it from memory. I found the DKs quite an odd profile. They were quite flat at the back and then had some shoulders on them. This is more of a, I would call it a more traditional neck profile. It's still quite slim. When I took it out of the box, I did think, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to bond with this. It's quite slim, but actually I got used to it really quickly. I think it's just that my Suhr Classic Pro and my Les Paul, that I play both of them all the time, they're quite round and chunky necks. this is not super slim, but on the slimmer side. I love the satin, you know, roasted maple thing on the back. It just feels so comfortable to me. So let's blast through some tones. I'm plugged into my custom audio PT100, currently on the clean channel. And I set the clean channel how I like it, which is it's on the verge of breaking up. So it will be push with humbuckers and clean with single coils, but it's got a bit of character to it. So starting with the neck humbucker. And then you can engage this single coil simulation, so I believe it stays hum cancelling. I've had a look in the back and it seems what it's doing is using a capacitor and a resistor to do kind of a low cut on the pickups to simulate more of a single coil vibe, more clarity. So I'll just flick between it. So starting with the humbucker. So really handy. I find neck humbuckers on the whole to be quite muddy, and that really cleans it up. I've added a similar kind of circuit on my Les Paul before. So that is able to be engaged in either the neck only or bridge only. So it's quite cool. It doesn't matter what you do in those positions, the top and bottom of the other positions aren't affected by that single coil simulation. The only thing I would say that's a negative about that is both humbuckers are on one switch. So for my purposes, I would opt to have the humbucker with that low cut on and the bridge pickup open all the time, which isn't possible with stock wiring. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is I'm very shortly going to be doing some mods to this guitar, so I prefer to show it in stock before I start messing around with it. So moving along, we've now got the neck and middle together. So nice and stratty. There is obviously a bit of a volume jump between neck humbucker and that split sound. But when you've got the amp driving a little bit like that, it's less noticeable. So then we've got the outside coils of the two humbucker for more of a telly type thing. Then we've got the bridge and middle together. I always think that position is quite reminiscent of the Mark Knopfler kind of tone. And then we've got the bridge humbucker. I'm not a fan of bridge humbuckers into a clean amp necessarily, but then you've got the single coil simulation to add. Which I find a really usable sound, and the way they've done that, it doesn't sound like a humbucker split that goes really thin and trebly. So it's much more usable in my opinion. So I mentioned I was going to do some mods to this guitar. First of all, I want to independently engage the single coil simulation, figure out a way of doing that. The other thing is on this 5-way, on the split sounds, the volume pot in this guitar is 500k. Single coils tend to prefer 250, so it shaves off a bit of that top end sort of crispiness and sibilance. So I'm going to find a way you can add a resistor so the pickups see 250 off a 500k pot. I'm going to find a way of figuring that out. And then the other thing is as well, there's a treble bleed on the volume pot in here, which I'm all for. I do it on all of my guitars. However, this one's just a little bit too urgent for me. It thins out a bit quicker than I'd like. Obviously, this is Guthrie's guitar and it totally works for him and his rig, but my needs are a little bit different. If I put it on a humbucker, you might be able to hear what I'm saying. So if we start at 10... So that's literally going between 10 and 7. That's another great thing about this guitar, just while we're here. The numbers are actually marked on the pot, on the knobs, and they're glow in the dark. And there's also a little marker so you know exactly where you're at, which is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant thing that I would have never thought of. That's actually shockingly useful. But yeah, so if I now go from 10 down to 5... it just thins out too much for me. So I imagine it's to do with the values on the treble bleed, but it could also be the pot. I think they're alpha pots in there, and I tend to lean on CTS, so it might be more what I'm used to, but I just prefer a smoother taper off with less low end cut from that treble bleed. So while we're still on the clean, I'm just going to play some chords and cycle through all the pickup selections so you can hear it all just with some standard chords. A little listen to the sweep of the tone control while we're here. A fairly smooth taper on that. I like it, and like I said, it's great that you can see exactly what number it's on, because I've found on this guitar with the single coils at the moment, I tend to want to roll it back to like 8 or 9. Like I said, hopefully the mod I'm looking at doing will just take off a tiny bit of that sibilance. Right, we're over on the overdrive channel now, and let's listen to the pickups, starting with the bridge humbucker. The single coil simulation. It does seem to add a little bit of hum, so I wonder if it's doing some sort of partial split or just cutting the bass on one of the coils. Whatever it's doing, it sounds good. It just introduces a little bit of hum, apparently. So now we've got bridge and middle. That one sounds particularly good with a bit of drive. Now we've got the outer coils. Neck and middle. Neck humbucker. And then the single coil simulation on the neck humbucker. The pickup selections that they put in this guitar are really on point. I really like the pickups in general, to be honest. The bridge pickup especially has just the right amount of snarl to it. I don't like anything too piercing, but it's just got this sort of mid-range snarl. Which seems to work equally well for either like rhythm stuff or leads. So as I'd mentioned, this guitar stays in tune very well due to these locking saddles down here, locking tuners at the top, and a very well cut nut seemingly. The problem I've had in the past is on guitars when you set them up, if you bend a certain way or use the bar in a certain way, the strings will come back slightly flat or sharp, and then you have to knock the bar down to get it back in. It's just a bit of a pain in the arse, but a fairly common problem. This guitar so far seems to be pretty void of those problems, so we'll do a little tuning test now with some fairly unmusical abuse, and we'll see where we get to. Pretty good. Just to close out the video, I want to give you my honest thoughts on this guitar for anyone that's interested. So it's worth mentioning I did buy this second hand. However, it was as close to new condition as any pre-owned guitar I have ever purchased. The guy said he'd put 11s on it and tuned it to E flat. When it came through the post, I put 10s on it, tuned it to E standard, and slightly adjusted the spring tension so the bridge sat flat. So I can't speak for the setup from the factory, but it sounds like not a lot has been done. The nut's been cut extremely well. There doesn't seem to be any friction anywhere, as noted by the tuning stability. I am a particular fan of this neck, the way it actually feels under the hands. They've done a great job with the finish on this. I'm a big fan of these satin type necks. And like I said, the neck profile is slightly on the slimmer side than what I would consider ideal. However, it's not super slim, and it is very comfortable for someone like me that does prefer slightly chunkier necks. The pickups themselves and the way they've been wired in this guitar has obviously had a great deal of thought. It's arguably one of the most flexible sounding instruments I've ever picked up without adding a ton of sounds that you wouldn't use in any situation. All of them are extremely usable, and it's a very user-friendly control layout. Like I said, on these guitars, like someone like Guthrie, who's obviously an incredible artist in his own right, but is also a session player. I think he even says in his launch video for this, he just wanted a guitar that he could pick up, take to a session, and know that any tones that he needed, he could cop just with one guitar. The bridge, I am self-admittedly not a fan of Floyd Rose's at all. I do find having to cut the ball end off and string it that way a bit of a pain in the arse, and also it does worry me a little bit that they're just going to pop out of these saddles. However, I completely understand that it's a necessary evil for this to function the way it does and be as stable as it is. So far, no real problems with it at all. I do have one major concern about this bridge. It's a Charvel only product and exclusive to the Guthrie Govan series of guitars. Now you've got, as a standard Floyd Rose would, you've got little blocks that lock in to keep the string in place. I know from reading forums and a few people that I know that use Floyd's, occasionally those little blocks will get a defect in them from overuse, restringing, over tightening, etc., etc. and it won't grip the string as well, so it will escape the saddle. I don't know if you can buy replacement parts for this. They're not the same as a Floyd. So if anyone knows if you can get replacement parts for this bridge from Charvel, please let me know. And not just the blocks as well, because I know the blocks also do sometimes go walkies. Like when you're restringing a guitar, they pop out. I used to do that on my old Floyd Rose, but I was slightly more careless back then. But also just any replacement parts for this bridge. Knife edges wear out and things like that. So it's a concern for the longevity of the guitar, especially for someone like me that gigs a lot and will be restringing regularly. It is a concern. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you know if any parts are available for this. And kind of the same with the pickups as well. You know, should a pickup ever go bad, I don't know if you can get replacements for these because they are exclusive to this model. There's possibly like a Charvel spares area on their website that I don't know about. But yeah, please do let me know. Overall, I just think this is an incredibly well put together and very well thought out guitar. It feels very much like a working man's guitar. Like I said, part of my motivation was Guthrie's designed it to be on the road all the time. You know, it's things like the lumen lay on the side of the neck and the knobs, the flexibility of tones, the stability of it with the graphite in the neck and all that sort of stuff. It feels like it's going to last. It feels substantial, and you know, it feels like it's going to go into battle and still be okay, which I'm all up for. You know, features like the locking tuners, locking bridge, it all just makes a lot of sense to me. So just a quick word on the price of these. I think when they first came out, if memory serves, they were sort of sitting at around the £1,800 mark, just under. It looks like now they're sitting, tickling that sort of £2,000 mark. I think 1999 at some places in the UK when they do eventually get back into stock. Now, this guitar is fantastic in my opinion and holds its own at that price point. However, there is a lot of guitars £2,000 and under that are absolutely kick-ass. There is no two ways about it. You're playing with some money there if you're looking up to £2,000 that can get you an astonishing instrument, and it just comes down to personal preference. But the point I wanted to make is that this does hang in that price bracket. To me personally, it does hang in that price bracket. Would I pay the £2,000 new? Possibly. I mean, again, it depends on any particular day, what's in stock and what speaks to you. But for the price that I paid for this, I do not regret the purchase. And this could be a keeper, and it could be, you know, could take over as the mainstay of my S-type guitar for touring and things. So in my opinion, the price of admission is worth as much as you get out of it. As in, if it does take over as my main guitar and I use it for years and years, it doesn't really matter what it costs as long as you think it's worth it. Anyway, guys, I imagine I've rambled on for some time, and hopefully you've got what you needed out of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please look at doing so. It really helps me out and keeps me making videos along the ever-changing YouTube algorithm scene. And whatever you're doing with the rest of your day, I hope it's awesome, and I'll see you again in another video soon. Cheers, guys.